Hit me.
Happy holiday limbo week, listener, as we say au revoir to 2022 and hello to 2023. Welcome to Succotash, the Comedy Soundcast Soundcast, episode 336. I'm Marc Hershon, your host this week for a Succotash Second Helping. Because I, like many of you, am on vacation from work this week, I didn't want to miss too much of that vacation by curating a collection of fresh Soundcast clips for you this time out. Now, if you missed last week's show, my partner in crime, Tyson Sainer, our crime possibly being the promotion of Soundcast by playing clips from those shows, brought out a trio of snippets for episode 335 entitled Clips for Christmas. The shows featured included Hollywood Palms Podcast, The Besties, and The Viral Podcast. You can still grab it wherever you find your quality soundcasts, places like Apple and Google Podcasts, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Amazon Music, Spotify, Audible, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Podbay, Podchaser, and of course, at our SuccotashShow.com home site that houses that episode and 334 more going back almost 12 years. As I said, I'm off this week, so I opened the vault that holds the Succotash archives and dug way back 7 years or so to our Epi119 that dropped on November 5th, 2015. It features my interview with comedian and actor Brian Haley in an episode entitled Takin Haley's Comments. This episode also features a double dose of our old Bursto Durst feature with comedian Will Durst. Update on Will's condition. As many of you know, he suffered a stroke while waiting backstage for a show a little over 3 years ago and is still on the road to recovery. He's been doing a little bit of performing in the past year, nothing too strenuous or long-winded, and he's still in a recovery facility undergoing daily physical activity and therapy to get back walking as well as to regain full use of his left arm. The GoFundMe account that was established back when this all began is still up and running because the medical bills, well, they keep piling up. If you'd like to help out, just click over to GoFundMe.com/F/AWUKK-Will-Durst. Oh, this is too long. You can find a direct link to the GoFundMe account on our home site at SuccotashShow.com. You'll see it there. You just click, go right over. Or you can just go on Google, type in GoFundMe and Will Durst. It will also take you to that account. All right. Tyson plans to take a holiday week off next week as well, so watch this same feed for another Succotash Second Helping next week, and then after that, we'll both be back with the live, up-to-the-minute Soundcast Clip Madness all over again. Until then, have a happy new year, and enjoy my episode with Brian Haley.
Hit me.
From Studio P in Sausalito, the home of the hit, it's time for
Succotash,
the #1 award-seeking comedy podcast about comedy.
Podcast.
And here's your host, internationally recognized comedy podcast podcaster, Marc Hershon.
Oh yes, it's me, Marc Hershon, your host and benign growth for Epi119 of Succotash, the Comedy Podcast Podcast. And finally, we have a Succotash Chats episode for you. The last chats I had, those were in relation to the Los Angeles Podcast Festival almost 2 months ago. And while I enjoy featuring comedy podcast clips as much as the next guy who hosts a show featuring comedy podcast clips, it's enjoyable for me to sit back and chat it up with some fun and or funny people once in a while. And our guest this episode is actor-comedian Brian Haley, a guy that I have known, really for 30 years, dating back to when I used to run the Comedy Underground Club in Seattle, Washington. As you'll hear in this episode, not only do I not know everything about Brian as much as I thought I did, but he also quickly leapt from the stand-up stage to roles on television and in the movies. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk about his regret at not spending more time in the stand-up comedy realm. We talk about some of the roles you'd know him from, including the season he did on NBC's Wings, the Coen Brothers' The Man Who Wasn't There, the film Always, directed by Steven Spielberg, Baby's Day Out, which made him a huge star in India of all places, and more. But really, Succotash is a podcast about other podcasts, primarily comedy-based, as you know. But when there's a comedian involved somewhere in the mix, that pretty much makes any podcast a comedy podcast, right? And Brian has a role in a new show being produced by GE, of all places, something called The Message. Now, I'm fascinated by this show. I've listened to all their episodes so far. We talk about that show and Brian's role in it, and we'll give a listen to a clip from The Message as well. In addition to our chat with Brian Haley, we have a double dose of our Burst O' Durst with political comedian and social commentator Will Durst. We also have a Henderson's Pants ad. We'll take a gander into the tweet sack. And we have a new a cappella song by our friend Abner Surd, a sweet little ditty about autumn, which we will play at the end of the show. I wanted to take just a moment to thank those of you who've been using the Amazon banner at the top of our home site at succotashshow.com when you do your shopping at amazon.com. Every time you do that, we get a little taste off the top of your purchase. No extra cost to you. Amazon just gives it to us. And lately we've been getting a nice tidy direct deposit from Amazon into the Succotash coffers, which tells us not only are you guys buying stuff there through us, but it's also helping us to truly defray the costs of producing the show. Well, a little bit. It still would help if you wanted to click the donate button up at succotashshow.com and give us some real money, but that's okay. We take what we can get. The other thing that helps us out is when you take time to rate and review Succotash on iTunes. I want to give a shout out to Rick from the Ice in the Face podcast, also CEO Pistol Petey for posting a couple of lovely 5-star reviews. They're up on the iTunes section for Succotash. You can read them right now, and thank you guys for those. Alrighty, let's get to our first Burst O' Durst. This one's from a couple of weeks back as the Benghazi hearings were in full flower.
Hey guys, Will Durst here with a few choice words on the Benghazi hearings. And no, Benghazi is not the guy who hung out with John Cassavetes back in the 60s. That was Benghazi. Benghazi is shorthand for an attack on our Libyan compound. And this was the 8th time Republicans held a hearing trying to blame Hillary Clinton for the death of 4 Americans. Everything is her fault. The Challenger space shuttle blowing up, sinking of the Lusitania, and global warming, which, by the way, doesn't exist. The goal is to damage the former Secretary of State's presidential run. But the overall effect of this 11-hour ordeal was more like spitting in the wind. Most of the effluvium landed on the originators. There could be more blowback, on top of Kevin McCarthy forced to give up his run for Speaker of the House after admitting the hearings were nothing more than a political hatchet job. The Republican test for Hillary seems to be, if she doesn't float, she's not a witch. Nobody knows why the former First Lady makes these guys short-circuit like a jerry-rigged discount space heater during a power surge, and nobody can answer the big question, which is how come when 3,000 people died on 9/11, George Bush was a hero, but 4 people die in Benghazi and Hillary Clinton is responsible. Although for her part, the former New York senator may have overplayed her noble, weary patience by just a tad, especially the part where she pretends to be a 67-year-old grandma befuddled by her email when everybody knows in her spare time she knocks out encrypted navigation codes for NSA drones to skirt no-fly zones. But it ain't over. At the end of the day, the chief marsupial of this kangaroo court, South Carolina's Trey Gowdy, channeled the Chicago Cubs when he said, "Wait till next round." Yeah, oh boy, can't wait. For Succotash, the comedy podcast, I'm Will Durst.
We'll have another visit by Durst before this episode's over, but remember you can always find more of him on his home site at willdurst.com, or you can catch him appearing live on stage near you, or even twit him tweeting at Will Durst on Twitter. Let's get into my interview with our special guest, Brian Haley. Apologies for the quality of this chat. My usual software that I use has not caught up with the latest Mac OS, and I had to make do by cobbling together a recording made at either end of the Skype connection. It's definitely listenable, but it might be just a mite thin in terms of the audio quality. I had to cut out a lot of extra noise and try and make it sound even, but as you know, I'm a big stickler about sound quality on podcasts, and just could not pull it together as well as I would have liked in this interview with Brian. But I had the opportunity to talk to him, so I didn't want to lose it. So here we go. Enjoy our talk. I will pick you up on the other side.
All right. So I have Brian Haley on the Skype from somewhere on the East Coast.
That guy's making a lot of money, huh? The guy who did that?
Yeah.
Skype! And he just sits back for the rest of his life. He gets like a nickel every time that happens.
That's the kind of mailbox check you want.
Yeah, it is. Those are good checks.
So, Brian, are you in New York or New Jersey? Where are you?
I'm in New York.
Located?
I'm a New Yorker, baby. I'm in Queens right now. But,
and for those of you unfamiliar with Brian Haley, well, where the hell have you been, first of all?
Exactly.
Second of all...
If I had a nickel for every time I've had to say that.
But you and I go back, we were just talking, it's got to be 30 years at this point.
Way, way back machine. To 85 is when I started. And my first run-in with you, non-violent one, was in 85 for the comedy competition.
You know what? I think it was before 85, because you were performing at the Underground in Seattle.
No, that's when I started. I went up for the first time in 84 at Blocks, like September, and then in April I was in a motorcycle accident, so I was forced to do stand-up comedy. I could no longer be a laborer.
Okay.
And so I started doing the open mics, and then that spring, I think, did the comedy competition.
Oh, I guess that's right.
85 and 86. Yeah, which you ran that, right?
I did run the comedy competition, but I left running the Comedy Underground in 1985, but I know I saw you on stage there.
Yeah.
I have vivid recollection of you prancing around on stage with a balloon.
Oh, my God. Oh, no. Yeah, that stuff, listen. My favorite line is, this is in defense of sucking as a comic. My favorite line was at the Comedy Underground, and Doug Ferrari was heckling Rick Dukeman. and Ferrari had the cojones to say to Dukeman, and Dukeman was destroying him, and Ferrari said, at least I didn't, Dukeman slammed him, and Ferrari's response was, at least I didn't have a show get canceled, because Dukeman did that video show that was canceled, right?
That's right, yeah.
And Dukeman just says, Doug, you have to have a show to be canceled on a show. So true. So you have to actually be on stage in order to suck on stage. So that's my defense for how bad some of my material was when I was starting out.
Well, everybody is. I was talking to somebody just the other day about, it's a guy who had just started doing stand-up. He said, you got to be doing this for at least 3 years before you even have any clue.
No. Yeah, absolutely. I have no clue. It all happened to that. I swear to God, my biggest problem with my career in comedy was it all happened too fast. The opposite of what you would think. It was the late 80s, or mid 80s, late 80s, and they were just giving anybody who had 5 minutes, you could get on TV, you could get, even at the Improv and stuff. And
it was just TV was gobbling up everything it could find.
I never had the chance to really work on my act, like guys who can't act, like Norm Macdonald, spent all their time on their act and got really good at comedy, real good. Norm's a good actor. I like Norm. He's one of my favorites. But
he's one of the best Colonel Sanders I've ever seen.
I auditioned for that. How do you like that, huh?
Did you?
Yeah. Colonel Sanders, he's great. They got rid of, what's his name, impersonation guy, Phil.
Yeah, the guy from SNL.
Yeah, the SNL guy, and they replaced him with Norm. Norm's great. But anyways, what was I saying?
So how long were you doing stand-up before you actually started getting TV stuff? And people will remember you because you stepped into the last season of Wings.
Second to the last season. Yeah, Thomas Hayden Church went to Fox to do Ned and Stacy.
Yes.
With Deborah Messing. So I got cast as his replacement, the new mechanic on Wings, and that season was their highest rated season. The season with me as their mechanic.
Yeah, because Brian Haley was finally on the scene.
And then and then I did not come back for the final season, and they got canceled.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Right. But was that your first role that you got cast in?
No, I did a bunch of stuff prior to that. I started out as an actor. Stand-up was, I was acting in Seattle before I did stand-up.
Oh, okay.
With Lola Hollowell, if you remember her, some ancient old woman. She's got some kind of tie-in with the American Indians, and I don't think she knows it. She's that old. She is awesome, man. What a great character. I loved her. And anyways, so I was acting, and then I started doing stand-up, which was always my passion since I was a kid. And then stand-up took off, and so I just went with it. But I had my own show at Fox. I got acting right out of the gates. Stand-up was just a vehicle for me to get, and I say this ashamedly, stand-up was a vehicle for me to get acting gigs. And I really wished I would have focused on my stand-up, because I think that was my strongest, that was my fort, as it's properly pronounced. No,
well, you had some, you were, even just starting out, you had some really inventive stuff. You know, there were some people out of the Seattle area that, you know, it's a shame a number of people didn't get more attention just based on how quirky some of their stuff was. Like people like Dennis Mitchell.
Oh, I love Dennis Mitchell.
Right?
Gooey? No, that was you.
Sammy and Smoochie.
Sammy and Smoochie, one of the funniest comedy bits I've ever heard of. Can I tell this story, or you want to tell it?
You can tell it.
The one on the bus? You know this one?
That was in San Francisco.
In San Francisco, they're at the Good Time. What was it called? The Other Cafe. They're going through the audience, playing the accordion.
Yeah, Rick Schrader is Smoochie, and Dennis is Sammy.
And he's playing the accordion. They're going through, singing songs. They go outside. And yet the other, you could see the windows were on the sidewalk.
Yeah, well, actually, Dennis was on stage, and Rick would go out in the audience with the accordion.
Okay. So he goes outside. There's like a bus stop there. He's playing for the bus stop. A bus pulls up. He gets on the bus. Last thing you see is him walking down the aisle and a bunch of confused people on a bus staring at him as it drives off.
Yep, and Sammy's just on stage smoking a cigarette.
Oh, that's beautiful, man.
When Rick would go to the audience, he would just smoke a cigarette and just wait.
Those were the days.
Oh, man.
Anyways.
So, I mean, and you had that inventiveness. I mean, one of the funniest things, you did that HBO special that you were kind enough to invite me to help you with the wraparound stuff with a bunch of other guys.
Right.
But I still remember, because I didn't know, I knew it was you doing stand-up, and then we did this wraparound piece at the beginning and the end. But then it wasn't until I was watching the show, and they did the audience cutaways, that you were in the audience laughing at your own stuff.
Yeah.
In some of the cutaways, it was like patting, slapping someone else on the back and pointing at the stage and stuff.
Bill Hicks and I did our HBO specials the same night. He got a kick out of that one. Hey, man, you got it. You're in your own cutaways, man. Hey, that's funny shit, man. Yeah, the old Vic. One of the bits I did in Seattle, I was never afraid to try different weird stuff, so that was my fort. But I did definitely also do some stuff that I pray to God never gets out to the general population. I'm sure it will, but especially I should run for president just to see what's out there.
Just to get some of your old tape?
Yeah, just to see what kind of footage people have. I did a bit that I always thought was hilarious, never got a laugh. And I can't believe it wasn't funny. I started out, my brother gave it to me, my brother Mike. I pulled out a little branch out of my pocket in my jacket, went to my bank's branch office today, made a withdrawal. That was the bit. Never got a laugh. I go, okay, what's the obvious fix to this, Mark? Can you think of what it is?
Bigger branch.
Of course! Bigger branch. So I come up, pull out a big-ass branch next time I do a set there. No, nothing. Third time's a charm. I'm going to get him this time. I walk on stage with like a 15-foot branch I had found out windstorm in the sidewalk. We'll haul that sucker up on stage. Went to my bank's branch office today, made a withdrawal. Nothing. Now, see, I'd laugh just because the guy's trying, at least. I mean, that took a lot of effort to haul that thing around town just for that one joke.
Some people just don't like prop comedy.
I guess so. Yeah. Yeah, there was a lot. When it rains, it pours. There tend to be groups of funny, I don't know how to say this without sounding pompous, but extremely brilliant, talented geniuses. They all come up at one time,
Yeah.
And Seattle was, at that time, there was a lot of Drake Sather,
Yes.
Jeff Stilson, Jerry Swallow, myself, and that's about it. But all those people went on down to Hollywood, and Tom McTeague, and had very successful careers, especially Drake, Jerry Swallow too.
Yeah.
Drake wrote Zoolander.
Tom's still working hard. Doing stuff.
But a bunch of very talented, funny people all came up, and Stilson's producing, I don't know, he did Chris Rock's show or something. He's a big shot down there.
Yeah.
We all came up right at the same time. We all left, and we all had one thing in common. A dislike for a certain comic in Seattle whose name will go unnamed. But he was someone we all universally despised, and we just kind of got glee out of that. But he'll never go anywhere.
Oh, yeah. Well, if it's...
Ricola!
Yeah, he was the guy, he went to L.A. before anybody got out of town and just harvested some bits out of the clubs in L.A. and then brought them back to Seattle.
Are we talking about the same guy Yeah, I don't talk bad about anyone behind the back.
So you've also been in a pile of movies.
Yes. Lots of small parts in really, really good movies and big parts in really, really bad movies.
You were in Baby's Day Out. You were in McHale's Navy.
Baby's Day Out is so huge, true, in India, that it played, this is according to Roger Ebert. He's in Bollywood, which is that Calcutta? That's Calcutta, right? I think so. He's doing an interview, and the interviewer says, he asked the guy, what's the biggest movie that ever played in Calcutta? In Bollywood, in India. And he says, thinking it would be Slumdog Millionaire, maybe, who knows. Baby's Day Out. This is on the internet, so it can't be a lie. No, this is actually true. Played to sold-out audiences in Calcutta for over a year.
Holy cow.
It was so popular, they remade it twice in 2 different languages, like Bengali and some other Indian language. It was crazy. I'm huge in India. Huge. Where they respect comedic genius. Getting kicked in the crotch like no one else's business. Yeah. Anyways.
You've done serious turns in a number of things.
Yeah.
You were in that Spielberg movie, was it Always?
Always.
Yeah.
That was my first. That was my first big break in the early 90s. 1989, I believe, yeah. And then, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, for comedy, I forgot, probably the most popular thing I've done is Little Giants.
Oh, yeah,
Spike's dad, Little Giants. And all those guys that watched that when it came out in 94 are all in the NFL now.
Oh, my gosh, really?
So I do really well with the NFL guys, getting on the sidelines and stuff.
That's great.
Wanting to. But I get in good when I meet the players. They all know me, and I have a really good time there. Drama, yeah. Coen Brothers, Man Who Wasn't There.
Yeah. Gran Torino.
Yeah, Clint, working with the boss.
Yeah.
Working out with the boss every day at the gym. I go, Clint, you want your fitness age? He says, what's that? You see the posters when you walk in, Bill Puckett, actual age 53, fitness age 42. It's like $500. I'll do yours for 50. I go, you're 37. He says, I just go by how I feel. I say, how do you feel? I feel like I'm 100. Yeah.
What was that experience like, being on the set with him?
That's awesome. It was awesome. People come out of retirement to work on his sets. I almost didn't take the part. It was a small part I auditioned for, but it was Clint Eastwood. I mean, I've made exceptions for really small parts, because you can get trapped if you do small parts. People don't take you seriously anymore. But I did it for Scorsese, and I did it for Coen Brothers, and then this Clint Eastwood. Like, how many of these can I do? But I did it, and for a construction guy. But I was too young for the part, and so he asked me to read for the Sun, and I got it, which is a really good part.
Yeah.
And my first day there, I'm very intimidated. There's just certain people. I've been around everyone that's huge, and so I don't have any trouble with celebrity at all, generally speaking. But Clint Eastwood's pretty freaking important, And my first day is all me, the whole day. It's me doing all the scenes on the phone with him, which there are a lot of. And so I said, can you have Clint call me? I call the office, and I'd like to talk to him about tomorrow. So there's no surprises. I want to make sure we're on the same page on how I'm going to play this. And so they say, fine. I work out that day, work out a little too hard. My back hurts. I go back to my hotel, and they got all the fancy stuff there. It's a nice hotel. I go, I'm going to take a bubble bath, which is something I hadn't done since I was, like 12. But now I'm old enough, I feel secure enough, I can take a bubble bath. I don't care. What the hell? Get some wine? I'm taking a bubble bath. Phone rings. Well, I'm fancy joints with the phone in the bathroom. Pick up the phone. Hello? Hello, Brian. It's Clint Eastwood.
And you're in a bubble bath.
He says his last name like he's got to say his last name.
Right.
Anyways, yeah, I go. He goes, what you doing? I figure right into the mouth of a lion. I'm going for it. I'm taking a bubble bath. And I hear him say to his wife, he's taking a bubble bath. He thought it was freaking hilarious. And it's in the movie.
What?
He's in the movie. He takes a bubble bath in the movie. There's a scene where he's in a bubble bath. I think he put it in there because he thought it was hilarious.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So I got that going for me.
That's fantastic.
Anyways.
Before you got into acting and then comedy and then acting again, you did a little time in the military?
Yeah, like all great Americans started out. I was born 30 years late. Yeah, I just did a thing. I didn't know what to do. I was 19 and kind of restless. I got fired from being a logger. Kind of fired. I was a good worker. I was a really good worker, but I just didn't want to be a logger anymore. And so I went to Seattle and just hung out with my friends for a weekend. I didn't show up for work for like 3 days. They frown on that. I showed up and I just said, I just here to get my check, I guess. He goes, yeah, you're right. Like Gilbert Gottfried. Yeah, yes, just your check. That's all you'll be getting. Just a check. Don't even ask for anything else. Anyways, I joined the Army and had a good time. I just Special Forces. It was open to first enlistments then. Normally they only do that from within ranks. You have to be already in the Army and then you can apply for it. But there was a window there when I got in the early 80s when you could sign up for a shot at what they call the SFQC, the Special Forces Qualification Course, and I did it. It was a lot of fun. It was only 3 years. Then I did a couple of years of reserves afterwards just as a goof, but then my stand-up career took off, and so I got out of the reserves, no problem. And missed Grenada by a week.
What your parents thought of your career arc? Were they supportive?
They've been very supportive. They're wonderful. They're just, they're simple Irish Catholic people, and they're thrilled. So yeah, I have been very blessed in that area, and My dad always thought he was a comedian, so he was a little intimidated by me being on The Tonight Show, I think, because he kind of felt he should have been there.
Really?
So,
your dad fancy himself a comic?
yeah, he's got about three jokes, and they've lasted him approximately 70 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I know real stand-up comics that are about the same,
Yeah,
same amount of material, the same length of time.
Yeah, about that. Yeah. I haven't done stand-up in quite a while. I don't think I've toured since 2008. I've just been acting.
Do you miss it? I mean, when you see stand-up, you go,
I love it. Yeah, I absolutely love it, and I wished I hadn't have gotten out. It's just it's an enormous amount of work. If you're a stand-up, and you think of this when you watch someone like Norm do a killer 1 hour. No one's been able to do that, by the way. So few people have been able to have a career as long as his and still put out the goods. If you write 1 minute of material a week, 1 minute of funny, bankable material, you're the most prolific comedian ever, because no one's ever done that. That's 52 minutes of material a year. That's a new album every year. Nobody has ever done that. They're certainly not on a level of Steve Martin quality type, huge, funny, sustainable comedy. I mean, a lot of people do a lot of albums. Even Carlin, had some dogs. He had some really good ones, but he also started getting a little thin. But if you can write 1 minute of material a week, I've written that in about 10 years. I got one joke. Here's my new joke. It's a one-liner, which I don't have many of those. I went to check myself into a mental hospital, but the line to get in was insane. That's all.
Is that where then you take the branch out of your pocket?
Yeah. It's just an enormous amount of work, and if you're acting and working on other things and you have a family, it's very tough to do stand-up. You pretty much have to devote your life to it. As is evidenced by Jerry Seinfeld, I think one of the greatest stand-ups ever. And when he came back, was not nearly as strong as he was when he was constantly touring. Sure, he could be, but with his empire, the enormous amount of time it takes to generate that new materials, it's a tough business.
Yeah, it's hard, and it's constantly shifting. I mean, most of the guys that you and I know, they're having trouble getting headlining gigs because they bring in the younger crowd, and most of the major markets are going, well, we need some of the younger stuff, younger guys, and so guys I've known for years in San Francisco, they're able to headline Punchline on like a Tuesday night, but they can't get a weekend anymore.
Yeah. Ruben.
Crazy. But a lot of comics have been getting into podcasting, particularly guys that are, finding it tough to get booked, to find an audience, where'd their audience go. I think the best known case of that is Marc Hershon.
Yeah, Maron.
Got his,
I got a Maron story for him.
Yeah, he kind of put it together because he didn't know what else to do. He couldn't get booked. I
got a Maron story for you.
Okay, cool.
I got to get this out there. I'm dying to run into him because I want to bring this up to him because I have nothing against Mark. He's a very nice guy. But he opened for me when he was starting out at Columbia. He middled for me.
Really?
And I'm playing Columbia. This is my show. This is my show.
Yeah.
When you're working at college, the opening acts are even less than in a club. They're just to kind of warm up the audience a little bit. He does 50 minutes. 50 minutes in front of me.
Oh, my God.
I go, what the hell was that? He goes, I was killing. I go, oh, my God, are you out of your mind? He does a headliner set in front of me. Drains the audience. I had no case set after it. But I've been dying to run into him since then and go, had any opening acts do 50 minutes in front of you lately? I'm sure he knows now that was a big mistake. A big faux pas.
That's funny.
That's
funny, but
real nice guy.
But a lot of these guys, either to generate new material or because there's a lot of downtime, or because there's no one to tell them you can't do that material. There are a lot of guys doing podcasting, and you have found your way into podcasting in a dramatic fashion.
The back door, Mark. Yeah, that's me. Always through the back door. You know me.
It's interesting. As a purveyor of podcasts, I'm fascinated by The Message, which is being produced by General Electric, which is really interesting.
That's cool.
And it's sort of one of the first cases of major corporations taking a close look at podcasting and say, maybe we'll put our toe in the water and see what's going on out there.
Sure.
But just for my audience in brief, the Message is about a podcaster, this woman I believe she's from Chicago, and she's a linguist, and she gets hired to basically bird dog this case of trying to decipher this supposedly extraterrestrial message that was received like 75 years earlier. In the military has had it, and they've been trying to figure out where it came from and what it means, try to understand it, and they finally decided, let's turn to the public sector. It's been 75 years. Let's turn to some people that may have the smarts to figure this out. And that company, that's like a cipher company, they bring this podcaster in to chronicle the attempt to decipher the message. So that's just sort of the backstory for what the podcast is about. And you play the sort of military liaison.
I'm Colonel Eubanks, representing the Army, who brought the project to. We're going social media. We're gonna crowdsource it.
Yeah.
Because we can't make headway with this thing.
I think maybe 30 seconds passed before I even noticed there's another person in the room, an older man in uniform.
Am I allowed to give her your name?
Lieutenant Colonel Perry Eubanks, ma'am.
Hey,
Nice
should
to
I
meet you.
just...
Salute? Not necessary.
Colonel Eubanks, it turns out, is an old colleague of Robin and Ty's from their NSA days.
And just to clarify, Nikki, your recording equipment is live right now, yeah?
Yes.
So, Perry, if you really meant what you said about this being declassified, you won't mind saying it right now.
Can we sit down first, or...?
Right after you repeat the thing, on the record.
The NSA would like to hire Cipher to decode a message we have reason to believe was transmitted by an extraterrestrial.
Crazy town, right?
Now can we sit down? I'll say up front, you wouldn't be the first. A number of internal teams have taken a crack at it since 1945.
You kept this a secret for 70 years?
Written by Mac Rogers, by the way, who did a really good job. This is very, what's the word? Orwellian? What is it?
Orwellian?
Well, War of the Worlds kind of stuff.
Oh, yes.
It's very much...
it's very much a War of the Worlds sort of thing, because very quickly, the episodes aren't very long. It's a quick listen. It's like 8 to 10 minutes per episode, but by the third episode, things have started to jump the rails.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It gets pretty crazy.
Yeah, the people at Slate brought the idea, and GE sponsored it, and so, yeah, some the auspices of there's a podcaster who's a linguist that's doing a show, and got invited to meet two of her favorite linguists, some famous linguists, and so she took them up on it, and they dropped this bomb on her that they have a recording of an extraterrestrial recording that the U.S. government's been trying to figure out since 1953, what it's saying, and to decipher it. And I don't want to give away too much, but what the military kind of failed to mention was that a lot of the people that have listened to this end up dying.
Yes.
And that now that they've crowdsourced it, the whole world might die. Slight oversight on my part, which I tell them, I apologize for just before I wrap the towel around my neck and go into the bathroom with a gun and pull off a Dr. Strangelove.
Small clerical oversight, I believe was the term you used.
My precious bodily fluids. I break.
But so, how do you get a call to participate in a project like this?
I'm with Abrams as my agent, and they're one of the largest voiceover artists as well. They have probably the largest voiceover department of any agency. So I occasionally get called to go in on projects, and this one was an interesting thing. I don't book too much voiceover work. I did the voiceover for NFL Blitz, an EA Sports video game.
Okay.
And maybe one other thing, but this one, I was really kind of upset going in because they didn't have a sign-in sheet. I didn't have a script, a breakdown, nothing. I had no idea what was going on, and I was exasperated that day, and I went in all kind of gruff and a little annoyed, and it's exactly what they were looking for. So as luck would have it, kind of like Bob or Tom Kinney getting the SpongeBob part. Have you heard that story?
No.
Now I might butcher this, but I'm pretty sure Tom had just come from a voiceover audition where he heard an angry, what do they call it? A dwarf. Yeah, that's the dwarfism. Small person, but as opposed to a midget, which is derogatory, right? Or a midget, it would be proportional.
Yeah.
Dwarf would be dwarfism.
Yes.
So they got that voice, and they get angry, and they get that voice going, like the guy from Seinfeld. They animate it. And so Tom, as you know Tom, you know him personally.
Right.
Tom's just always, he picks up stuff like a sponge, and he's doing this voice for everyone, making them laugh. And he gets this audition to play a part in a cartoon, and he goes, I'm just going to do that angry dwarf. And it turned into the most popular, one of the most popular cartoon voices ever, SpongeBob SquarePants.
Absolutely. That's great. So, do you have much exposure to the world of podcasts? Podcasting? You ever listen to any?
I was told I should have gotten on it, but the day it came out, a friend of mine said, you got to check this out. And I just didn't see it. I didn't get it. Like blogging or anything else, I just didn't. It doesn't register with me. I'm too old school. Yeah. And I say that. I'm not proud of that. I admit it. It's just not my scene. So I've never done it, but I've been told by everyone you should get into it, and I've been told for years now, and I never really have.
Well, the good thing is it's still very much growing in popularity, and there are comics getting into it, seems every week. Gilbert Gottfried just started his like a year ago.
Oh, I'd love to hear
he like interviews just famous old stars that he enjoys, like Larry Storch, stuff like that.
Man, that's brilliant. I love it.
So it really gives you a chance to, if there's something you're into or something you want to bring out, it's a great chance to do it, and you really have total control, which is kind of what, led you and so many others into the world of stand-up in the first place, is you're your own person. There's nobody telling you what to put in your act, what not to put in your act.
I've had an idea about some fictitious ones that I'd like to do, but I've never, I want to do one. I was thinking of doing one as a racist, a neo-Nazi podcast.
Sure.
But the hook is, you can kind of tell I'm not really racist.
Right.
It kind of comes out that maybe I'm not racist.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny.
Guys at the lodge are always telling me that I'm not racist. Come on, look at me.
There's a great little short series, and the other thing is you're not limited to, or you're not stuck in doing, I'm going to be doing this forever. It's like Andy Daly did an 8-episode arc of episodes show for Earwolf, and it was based on it was called the Andy Daly Pilot Project. And so he did 8 different pilots for podcast ideas, all as different characters. But there was like a country western singing podcast. There was like a spooky story podcast. And it was all like the every host was completely out of his mind.
This sounds really familiar. Yeah.
So it's something that I think you'd definitely be good at. I mean, you do have voice talent for one thing, but you got the stand-up mind, and I don't know. It's a way to get your stuff out. Especially if you've had like this frustration over not being able to get out there and do stand-up, it's a great way to kind of get some material up there.
Yeah. I'm thinking about getting back into it now, and I've got an idea for a show called The Brian Haley Show. That might be a good outlet for it. Do they do video podcasts?
Yeah, you can, absolutely.
You just have your own show on YouTube, I guess.
That's right.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just getting into this YouTube thing. No. I'm on top of stuff. I am totally on top of stuff and literate on all new media and everything. And I have been since it came out. I see the opportunity. I just don't care about it, is my problem. I just don't.
How are the film scripts doing for you? Or that from school, the record? Just the next one.
Yeah.
Night. Thanks.
Yep. So, yeah, I'm just, I'm going to look into that. Brian Haley show is a funny idea if I could ever get it up and going. It's extremely expensive is the problem because I need an orchestra. Or at least a cardboard orchestra with someone conducting it.
Okay. Well, start small. Start with a trio and work your way up.
Yeah. It's a full show. It's a huge show that I want to do. You know, we have showcase rooms out here. For those who don't know, a showcase room is like when you go to the Cellar in New York or the Improv in L.A., there's a showcase rooms where every comedian only does 15 minutes. And as opposed to a 3-act show, which would be like Caroline's or Punchline in San Francisco, they have a 3-act opener, a middle, and a headliner. Showcase rooms, you get 15 minutes, and I want to do a 15-minute Brian Haley show. And I have ulterior motives for it, but let me give you a taste of it.
Yeah.
It opens up. I have whoever's emceeing say, not come up on stage. I'll do, let's say, Caroline's. And now, ladies and gentlemen, Caroline's presents a special presentation. Then we cut to audio, have the piped-in audio. From New York, it's the Brian Haley Show with the theme song and everything with the orchestra. That's where I have actual orchestra. And this is for a 15-minute set.
Okay.
Actual orchestra. I got The Late Late Show by Milt Bruckner. And then tonight Brian's guests are, and I have one of my comedian friends drop in and do a set, comedian Jerry Swallow, plate spinner Joe Howe, and, whatever. And the Brian Haley dancers. And now, ladies and gentlemen, Brian Haley. And then the theme song comes up, I come up, nice-looking tux. Old-timey, Dean Martin looking, 60s, cool. And I do like 3 minutes. Applause signs on the side come on. We cut to a commercial. I have TV sets that I've brought up, and cut to a commercial, show some fake commercial I make. Come out of that, and it's and now we bring in Joe Howe, plate spinner, friend of mine. He practiced this just for this one gag.
Nice.
He's a plate spinner that doesn't know how to spin plates, which is harder than spinning plates, to act like you don't know how to do it. Finally gets one going, and now he can't reach his plates anymore. Has to have someone from the audience, from the front row, grab him, hand him another plate. So I do that. There's 3-4 minutes there. Boom, we're out of that, into another commercial. We come up, have a stand-up, have one of my buddies come up and do a 3-minute set. We're out of that.
Nice.
And then you're at another commercial or short, and then we're into Brian Haley dressed in the tux, and I'm doing some goofy dance, singing some goofy song. LED sound system. LCD, anyways. Movement. It's this cool song. It's really cool, and it has what they call when the bass drops and it explodes into this huge, cool song. And I'm doing this really stupid dance that looks stupid until I step forward. Off comes the rip-away tux. I'm wearing a silver lame jumpsuit with the sparkly boots, and 4 dynamite-looking dancers, hot dancer chicks wearing the exact same amount. And when they do these dance I'm doing, it looks fantastic. So I'm doing this dance, everything's great. We're out with a commercial, 14 minutes. Last thing that happens, the entire cast comes up, me, of course, wearing the smoking jacket and the ascot, and I go, good night, everybody, and we all wave, while in front of the stage, giant clear plastic scrim, the credits roll in front of the stage. Credits begin to roll, we all wave good night, and guests of the Brian Haley Show stay at the Milford Plaza Hotel. The Milford Plaza is the lullaby of Old Broadway, and we all wave to the camera and talk.
Oh my God.
Yeah. 15 minutes, Mark.
That would be
Nobody could follow it.
No.
That would be so awesome. Nobody could follow that. Live orchestra, dancers. Come on.
Oh, it'd be great. It'd be great.
Show.
Can hardly wait. So that's in the wings. You're waiting to work that up.
Just trying to raise a little crowdfunding for that one. But all my ideas are just too expensive. That's my problem.
Well, I understand. That's when I'm trying to think of movie scripts. I always go, yeah, just two guys in a room.
Exactly.
One guy's an alien, see, and the room's actually a spaceship. Oh, no.
There you go. And then the battleship attacks. Wait a minute. Oh, crap. Yeah, that's always the way it is. We wrote an idea together, which I loved.
We've written several, yeah.
Which I loved, and we just did the treatment.
Yes.
And it was called, you remember what it's called?
Oh, God. I don't even remember.
Two guys drive across the country.
Yeah.
Nothing but trouble.
Yes. And
I, with your permission, rebooted that and wrote it, and it's really good. But it's coming in at about 140 pages. So it's a tome.
But that was like, as I remember, the main character, he gets in maybe this is a different idea. Is this the same idea where he ends up in a small town and he...
No, that's Rebel with a Perspective.
Rebel with his perspective. And you end up in a jail in, like, the South.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's this wacky comedy where you can leave, like, you leave this jail cell every night, and you can get out anytime you want.
Yeah.
That was wild.
Yeah, that was another that was a half-hour idea we had. But this feature I'm very excited about, and you'll get story credit on that. So I got that happening. It's I could see it's a buddy movie about two guys. One guy's getting married, and wants his buddy to be the best man. The best man knows that he shouldn't be marrying this girl for the reason. So he'll do it on the condition, he'll be the best man on the condition that they drive across the country. That'll give him 5 days to talk him out of it. That's not spoken, but it's known. Like, I know why you're doing this, and I'm game. I'm gonna, the guy getting married goes, go ahead, try and talk me, So they drive across the country, and hijinks ensues. It's very funny.
That's great.
Yeah, it's like Vince Vaughn, what's his name? Who's his compadre?
In Swingers?
Yeah. No, the Wedding Crashers duo.
Wedding Crashers. Yeah.
Vince Vaughn and Wilson, Owen Wilson. Yeah.
Well, cool. Brian, I've used up enough of your Sunday.
All right.
Thank you very much. And this is fantastic. I'm looking forward to it. Now, you appear in 2 episodes so far that I've heard of The Message. The last one sounds pretty dire, like we may not see you again.
Oh, that's what I was joking about. I pictured myself like the guy from Dr. Strangelove going and wrapping the towel around his neck and going into the bathroom and you hear the gunshot.
Yeah.
I'm taking the blame. Yes. I'm Colonel Eubanks, and I'm taking the blame for, we just got some new information on this. It turns out that we kind of did know that people have been dying from this, and
they weren't all dying from different causes.
Yeah, we thought it was just coincidence, but the information was transcribed wrong, and they're all dying of the same disease. A pulmonary, violent, can't-breathe disease.
Your character is referred to, however, in subsequent episodes, apparently. So.
Yeah. So I think I'm in 3 episodes or so, and it was a lot of fun.
Well, it's cool. It's great, and it's great catching up with you, and I look forward to talking to you in the near future as well.
Mark, you're a good man, and you're a damn good writer, too, and I wish you the best on your podcast and your writing endeavors.
Thank you, friend. Appreciate it. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, buddy.
Take care.
See you around.
Thanks to Brian for taking time out to chat it up with me. His website seems to be down, but you can follow Brian at Haleywood, HALEYWOOD on Twitter, and see all the things he's got to say. Before we get into the tweet sack, here's a word from our sponsor.
Hello, friends. Whether you are a believer or not in all of this global climate change malarkey, there's no denying that the world's weather has taken on an odd end-of-days look and feel. A day that's bright and balmy one moment can change into a dark and stormy with no warning at all. Which is why the design team at Henderson's Pants has come up with a new exciting breakthrough. Poncho Pants. Yes, for the first time in trouser history, or trousery as we like to say, you can own a stylish pair of pants fit for any business meeting or social occasion, which is also equipped with a sturdy pullover poncho that not only comes with a hood, but is 100% waterproof to boot. The poncho, super thin and made of high-density mylar, is compressed using Henderson's patented microfold technology and tucked into the rear waistband of the pants. Now, at the first drop of moisture, simply reach behind your own back like this, and with a good stiff yank on the poncho, as if giving yourself, a Melvin or a wedgie, well, you unfurl the garment over... This hurts. Unfurl the garment over your head and down in front of yourself. You'll be as right as rain and dry as a bone, ready to get on with the business at hand. Henderson's Poncho Pants are perfect for both men and women. Be sure to check out our other foul weather garments, the Skinny Jean Serape, the Coverall Cords, and our Denim and Duster Western Combo. Originally designed for Neil Sedaka, Gene Kelly, Creedence Clearwater Revival, and anyone else who gets those references. Henderson's Poncho Pants are available anywhere cold fronts and warm fronts like to smack into each other. That's Henderson's, dressing on the left and on the right since 1837 because we're just that big. And now back to Succotash.
Yes, it's time for the Tweet Sack, that special time every episode when we try to keep up with the tweets, status updates, and email messages that come heading our way. It's easy to keep our eye out for them because we don't get a whole lot. Yeah, it's sad, right? First, thanks to Davian Dent, UK podcaster who hosts the Bitter Sound podcast, also co-hosts the Strange Times show. He was trying to upload a link to us from his latest Bitter Sound episode and noticed that the link to our upload site, as it appears on our Facebook updates, doesn't seem to connect through. So I checked out, and sure enough, the link looks normal, but when I cut and pasted it into the address bar in my browser, it had a bunch of hinky code attached to it, and it only went to a dead page at the upload provider. Not sure what's going on there. For some reason, when it recopies that over from our Twitter, it goes screwy. So if you are a comedy podcaster, would like to upload a 3 to 5 minute clip of your show directly to us, I would recommend going directly to hightail.com/u, that's just the letter U, /Succotash. And I don't know if it makes a difference, but try it with a capital S on Succotash, Succotash. All right, so that should get you there, and then your clip should get directly up to us. And we will have a clip from Davian Dent in our very next show. Speaking of friends of our show, Jeffrey Welchman, former host and grand poobah of the now defunct Inverse Delirium podcast, has resurfaced. I predicted he would be back, and sure enough, I mentioned his new venture in somewhat hazy terms last episode. I'm now permitted to speak of it because the first episode of The Reigning Lunatic has dropped, and even features yours truly, that's right, me, yours truly, in a guest starring or guest voicing role. I'll clip it on our next Succotash Clip show, but for now, you can get right to it and listen to the entire episode. That's The Reigning Lunatic on Stitcher. It wasn't up on iTunes when I looked. It might be there now, not sure, but do a search for The Reigning Lunatic, and that's REIGNING, Reigning Lunatic. I had mentioned on the last episode the comedian Harry White in New York was talking about writing a couple of Henderson's Pants commercials for our own Bill Haywatt to read. And I had intimated that maybe he just hadn't gotten around to it for various reasons. Turns out he had. He'd sent it, as sometimes happens. It had gone astray. I'm going to blame the internet. I probably didn't see it or something, or it went in a spam filter. I don't know, but he resent his 2 spots that he'd written, and they're quite funny. So I have shuffled them along to Mr. Haywatt, who's on vacation at the moment, but we'll be back soon. We'll be back in front of the Studio P microphones, and we'll have 2 brand new spots courtesy of Harry White coming out in future episodes. All right. I finally got around to looking at the comments that occasionally get posted at succotashshow.com. That's our home site. And I'm so used to just getting spam there, nobody ever seems to actually want to tell us anything, that I hadn't looked for a while. Well, I found one from Uncle Dan of the Taco Tuesday podcast from last October 5th. He says, thanks to Mark and the Succotash Show for again highlighting the Taco Tuesday podcast. We appreciate you letting our little production slide, especially among all the great talent you highlight every episode. We may not be always doing it right, but we sure are exploring new ways to showcase our work. Thanks again, Dan. Well, thank you, Dan. I think what he's referring to was I was kind of down on those guys for sending me a self-contained teaser for their show because we just want to play clips because it feels more natural and gives us a true slice. And so that was a fully produced trailer for his podcast. I let him slide. He's right. I like those guys, and I let Dan and his crew get away with it. How about that? If you want to send us questions or comments, you can get them here in the old tweet sack by sending them to MARC. That's me, Mark, at succotashshow.com. You can simply include at Succotash Show in a tweet question, and we'll see that. Or you can call our non-toll-free number, 1-818-921-7212, and leave us a message on the Succotash hotline. That number again is 1-818-921-7212. Succotash hotline. Would love to hear from you. If we get your question via the hotline, I will just replay your question in its entirety right here on the show. All right, that's it for the cards and letters. Let's take a moment to thank a bunch of those folks kind enough to tweet, retweet, follow, love, like, heart, or otherwise mention Succotash in their social media stream in the past week or so. Wayne Fetterman, Gobsmacked, Pod Underground, YMM Radio, Samantha Pett, The Angry Ginger, 3D, Dave in the Cave, Texas Butter, Julie Lynn Emerson, Lest Bree Forget. I don't know what that is, but it makes me laugh. Tony Wolf, Giselle Nett, Lord Tiberius, Science Faction. Good morning, you Good morning, you drunks. I hope that's a podcast. I've got to listen to that one. Floyd R. Billett, DAPF Podcast. I'm going to be interviewing those guys from DAPF pretty soon. Davian Dent, Taco Tuesday. What a Pair of Trousers. Cora Buellert. I don't know. Sorry for the names I mangle. Jason Gotts, Three Cuckoos, The Slant, Couple of Things Podcast, Tiger and Sacco Jones, The All-Seeing Guys, Ryan Bradshaw, Adam Abnett, The Salty Language Podcast, Passersby Podcast, Hiroshi Scheib, Paul Rabinowitz, Drew Carlberg, Zombie Mommy, Crowdbuzz, The Fake Ass Radio Show, Jabs of the D-Head Factor, The Pod Mafia, Sergio Valenzuela, John Anelio, Illusionoid, Constant Struggle, The African 81, The Naked Porch Podcast, Black Core VR, Dale Seaver, Josh Musio, Patrick Flynn, Matt Knudsen, Larry Stevens, Stephen Fresh, Unreal U.S. Politics, Jordan Brady, Dr. Pistol Pete, Ferrat I, Talk Nerdy to Me, Corrosive Radio, Geek Master Blaster, Jason Beckwith MS, Bill Butcher, Dr. Cliff Huxtable, Podcast Critic, Rob Mad Dog Lynch, Dr. Charlie Outback, Broken Filter Live Show, Gamer Jules, Rapture Insurance, Corey Epps, Eric Furness, Dave Nelson, The Educated Podcast, Party Roll Podcast, FYFC Podcast, Dale A. Thompson, The Gormless Mook, Rob and Slim, Kyle Bertheson, Endgames Improv, Speechless Show, The Irish on Fire, The MO Show Podcast, or no, that's The Mo Show Podcast, accidentally capitalized both those letters, Misael Virgin, Frank Di Piazza, Wiki Shuffle Podcast, George Grimwood, Talk Radio X, Jim Haney, Rick Carr, Sheharyar Khan, Robert Bacon, AFK Steffers, Jack Aldrin, Angel Andujar, Mrs. Cashew. Oh, why couldn't they all be Mrs. Cashew? Chris Alnott, Daryl Motors, David Taylor, Sean Merrick, Roddy Schweringen, Instagrants, Agent Palmer, Eisenstein Effect, Primetime Chuckles, David Feldman, Shizer and Marino, Kristen Chamber, Dr. Darth Outback, Hob the Troll, DAPF Pod Neil, TV Donut, Drunken Dork Podcast, Michael Cadle, The Lo-Fi Show, Does This Hold Up, Jellyvision Live, Royal and Doodle. They're coming back. Royal and Doodle they're revamping. They're returning. They'll be back soon. Royal and Doodle, Ice in the Face, Mike Russo, and the Unsocial Network.
Hey guys, Will Durst here with a few choice words about the American presidential sweepstakes. You know, Winston Churchill called our electoral process a circus wrapped in a game show covered in poisonous weasel glitter, or something like that. There just has to be a better way to pick the leader of the free world. At times it almost seems like anybody who can be president shouldn't be. Speaking of which, who would want this job? Look at what we do to these poor people. Gang debates, smug interrogators, partisan witch hunts, sentenced to months of trudging through the Iowa and New Hampshire mud, teams of opposition researchers digging through garbage looking for anything resembling dirt, gas station sushi. You know what? If we're going to run this like a game show, let's run it like a game show. Considering the obstacles involved, we could easily change the title and format to The Amazing Race political version. They morphed Apprentice into Celebrity Apprentice. Why not Presidential Apprentice? Let Donald Trump see how it feels to be fired. Gonna happen soon. Nobody would quibble with The Biggest Loser. A lot of shows wouldn't need much alteration. Big Brother sort of fits. The Real World, in an ironic sense. Shark Tank, definitely. American Idol? Yeah, right, dream on. The Voice, or lack thereof. Survivor, Foggy Bottom, is almost a perfect fit. We could even mimic the format, offer up clues to help contestants find hidden immunity idols. Congratulations, you are guaranteed second place in the South Carolina primary. Or go a different direction altogether. Simply bill it as America's Next Top Politician, Dancing with the Office Seekers, Keeping Up with the Roosevelts, and finally, So You Want to Negotiate with Putin. For Succotash, the Comedy Podcast, I'm Will Durst.
And there you have it, our second burst of Durst for this episode. Thanks so much to Will Durst for supplying us with those. You can find more of Will at willdurst.com. Also tweeting at Will Durst on the Twit machine, or twitter.com as it's sometimes known. I've been bringing you this show from a room in my house because I'm not in Studio P, and Studio F broke down today. That's right, my little Fiat 500. I was out in the wilderness, not far from my home, but it's like 4 miles away, hiking in the wilderness, and got back to my car, and Studio F refused to turn over. So I had to, there's no cell phone reception where I hike, so I had to hike all the rest of the way home. And so I'm off to try and repair Studio F as best I can, and I don't know anything about cars. So thank you so much for listening. That's all she wrote, at least when it comes to her writing about Succotash Epi119. If you get a chance, please rate and review us on iTunes or Stitcher or SoundCloud and anywhere else you might run across us on the interwebs. And we have a new a cappella song by our friend Abner Surd, which we will play at the end of the show. We'll be back really soon with a Succotash Clips episode with sound bites from a whole bunch of comedy podcasts. In the meantime, let your friends know about us, and we'll cheerfully thank you for passing the Succotash. Goodbye.
You've been listening to Succotash, the Comedy Podcast with your host, Marc Hershon. Brought to you by Henderson's Pants and...
Imagine your company's name right here.
Find us on the web at succotashshow.com, on iTunes, on Stitcher Smart Radio, and on SoundCloud. You can also hear us streaming and like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at Succotash Show. Email us at
marc@succotashshow.com.
Or call into the Succotash hotline at our non-toll-free call number, 818-921-7212.
That number again is 818-921-7212.
Succotash is produced and engineered with the kind assistance of Joe Paulino through the auspices of Studio P Sausalito, home of the hit. Our associate producer is Tyson Sainer. Our musical director is Scott Carvey. Our booth assistant is Kenny Durges. Until next time, I am your loyal booth announcer, Bill Haywatt, reminding you to please pass the succotash. Goodbye.
Wake up, it's Saturday, put on your shirts and sleeves. Come on, before we play, we gotta rake the leaves. We rake the leaves when they tumble from the sky. We rake the leaves, then we make the pile high and we jump in. Wake up, the day's begun, put on your dungarees. We gotta find some conkers underneath the chestnut trees. We're playing conkers, with chestnuts on a string. We're playing conkers, we take a mighty swing. Ha, we win. Wake up, let's go outside, put on your gloves and hat. We'll play all day, then come inside and poke the thermostat. We'll drink some cocoa and eat some ginger men. We'll drink some cocoa to warm us up again. Let fall begin.